This is something we've been dealing with, and now we got some movement. Well, the movement is, of course, stonewalling. So we filed a Freedom of Information Act request back in August to the FBI about the whole Hunter Biden thing, about the information that the FBI was sharing with Facebook, Twitter, any of the social media app forms that were out there to the executives of these companies. Mark Zuckerberg came forward during an interview and said, hey, look, we did get contacted by the FBI, and we did throttle things back. Elon Musk ends up taking over Twitter, buys Twitter, and starts releasing what was going on. And we find the causal link here to be James Baker, who, when you were in office, was the general counsel of the FBI. He leaves the FBI and then becomes, lo and behold, shockingly, the deputy general counsel of Twitter. Elon Musk fires him last week because he was stifling the release of the information. At the same time, the FBI closes our FOIA request, no response. We filed an administrative repeal, no response, which now allows us to go to court because they know what the exposure is here. But I think it's interesting to me that all this has happened kind of simultaneously, Rick.
Yeah, look, they've been caught, right? They have been caught utilizing the guy who weaponizes government, who tries to silence dissenting voices. And this is what is really scary. We need to have a media that puts checks on these people who weaponize government. There should be media pushback of James Baker. There should be media pushback on the outrage that we were finding out with Twitter, but yet there's not. And I think that in lies the whole problem, that these people are feeling emboldened to keep going after dissenting voices and crush their political opponents simply because there's no pushback. The media are not saying to them, stop, what are you doing? This is getting crazy.
So the interesting thing here on this one is that, normally you get a response that says, hey, here we're going to give you this, but we're not going to give you this, or we're reviewing nothing. They finally come back and say, we're not going to admit, or you love this, they're not going to admit or deny any of this because it involves third parties. I'm trying to think. The third party is really the social media providers. The third parties are not the government employees that were doing all of this. So we ended up, after the appeal was not responded to, filing a lawsuit in federal court.
Yeah, and we're specifically
That's going in tomorrow, actually.
We're specifically pointing out exactly what you said, that we've asked for all the records pertaining to the FBI's interactions with the social media platforms. They're trying to come back and say, oh, we don't give information on third parties, so we're not admitting or denying anything, and we've closed out your case.
Yeah, before we could even respond. So Rick, the thing is this, it looks like, if you look at it retroactively, it looks like the FBI, Department of Justice, was putting their thumbs on the scale, not thinking they get caught. They get caught on multiple fronts. Zuckerberg starts talking about it, and then Elon Musk ends up buying Twitter. And all of a sudden, their entire scheme, if you will, is exposed.
Thank God for ACLJ.
Well, thank you.
Literally, thank God for ACLJ. This is one of the reasons I'm a part of this team, is because we don't give up. We don't just take the multiple times where the government says, oh, go pound sand, or we've closed your case. No, when there's an outrage, we take it to court. We do action. And I just want people to understand. I know that we have so many people, Jay, that are so frustrated with conservatives and conservative organizations who step up and they scream and holler, but they don't fight back and they don't take them to court. We're not issuing just a press release. We're not trying to embarrass them on Twitter. We are taking them to court. And we are saying that you must prove why you're being so shady. And I got to just say, thank God for that whole team. I'm a very small part of it, but thank God that I'm a part of it. And please keep fighting like this. This is what people want.
Andy Econo famously said on our broadcast, our senior counsel, it's like a needle in a haystack. And you know this. You get 20,000 pages of documents, but there's one thing. I'll never forget the disclosure that we got in the Israel FOIA litigation that found out that the State Department, gave $1 million to Mahmoud Abbas's son under the guise of some humanitarian aid to his son. That's the head of the Palestinian Authority, for those that don't know. You would have never known that. And like Rick said, we're not just like, oh, this is horrible, the sky is falling. We're taking action. Now, Rick, you look at this now, and we just came through an election season. Now we're gearing up for another election season. It seems like we're always in election season these days. But this has got to be, the government can't put their hands on the scale of which party succeeds. That's just not the way. The American people can. They can elect whoever they want that's running for office, but the government doesn't get to make that call.
They shouldn't get to, and they are getting away with it lately because we don't have the media. I know it keeps sounding like a broken record, but it's true. But here is the key. When organizations like ACLJ file an actual lawsuit, then you really put the media in a position where they can't ignore that. They're going to have to report that ACLJ is filing this lawsuit. Hopefully, then somebody somewhere will say, well, what is the lawsuit? Let's look at it. But emphasizing this in Washington, D.C. and with the media is going to be incredibly important. I'll look forward to pushing it out on my social media, and everybody listening to this should. And we should ask our representatives to petition the government and say, you need to answer this lawsuit. This is a serious issue. This is a serious legal case. This is not just something flighty. When ACLJ does something, it's a serious case.
There's a reason that in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, we frequently cite the religion, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, like I said, freedom of the press. There's also a thing, a provision in the First Amendment that says petitioning your government for redress of grievance. And that's precisely what we are doing here. But it has taken, in this particular case, we have had issues where they, kind of hide the ball. But CC, on this one, they are totally stonewalling.
Absolutely. We expect requests that say that, they won't answer, they'll answer partially, or we get documents that are heavily redacted. And we do have to, go back and forth and sometimes go to court on those cases. This is the first time that I know that I can recall that we literally just got a no comment, basically, and we're closing out your case. We got nothing.
So, Rick, I know I don't want you to disclose anything. Obviously, you can't. But there's something here. I mean, obviously, what Elon Musk is putting out there is showing that. What Zuckerberg alluded to is showing that, and that the government was saying, hey, watch this, watch that, which basically was putting the thumb on the scale. I always say, the way to handle speech you disagree with is more speech, not the silencing of one side. But, whether it's a city council in Pueblo, Colorado, where we dispatched ACLJ lawyers, or a prayer case in Ocala when they had a crisis in their community, this idea that you're putting your thumb on it or silencing one part of the debate is not the role of the United States government. And you have been our United States government at the highest levels as a member of the cabinet. But that's not the role of the government here.
No, and I got to tell you, we've got a whole bunch of lawyers and a whole bunch of regulators who work permanently for the government, who will bring cases to you, to me, and they will say things like, well, we're going to put them off. We're not going to disclose this. I, many times in dealing with FOIA requests, would say, why not? Why don't we just share it? Why don't we be transparent? Even if we've made a mistake, I think that you get credibility when you are transparent and you're open about even mistakes that you made. This is what should have happened early on in the Russian investigation, the Steele dossier. It didn't. They kept covering up more and more. And it's the reason when I was DNI, why I got in all sorts of trouble for releasing 52 transcripts and unredacting all that information. They swore that I was giving up, terrible secrets and that I was going to be sued personally. Well, none of that ever happened, and I disclosed all of them. I think transparency is a good thing, and I think the American people can handle it.
I appreciate it. Rick, thanks for your comments and your support of the ACLJ as part of our team. Folks, this is where it comes in, and Rick said it. And don't go yet, Rick, because I think this is important for people to say. Folks, when you're supporting the ACLJ, you're not just supporting this apparatus that you're seeing on air. But, and Rick could tell you this, when we're filing these lawsuits, this is serious stuff and takes a lot of time. And your support on this, the people watching this broadcast right now, their support on this, especially the matching challenge, Rick, is critical to our success.
Well, the reason why it takes a long time, I just want to emphasize this, is because we're serious and we're trying to do it the right way. We're not just trying to issue a press release. When you go to court, you don't want to have your lawsuit completely just thrown out. You want to be able to have serious substance. That takes time. And that takes lawyers, and that takes people really thinking through this. So what you get is a serious team. I hope people will support the ACLJ. That's the reason why I'm here, is because it's a serious organization that I know has leverage and push. And when they speak up in Washington, D.C., people have to listen.
Thank you, Rick. We appreciate it. Folks, this gives you a great opportunity to, if you're able, we encourage you to do this. Support the work of the ACLJ. This is the month where we determine the budgets for the next year, and we've got big expansion plans that we're going to share next year. Your support makes all the difference.